Well, I'm glad I could be of service to someone. You read the book, and that Brahmacharya book, and that inspired you. In the kirtan, devotees were dancing in a circle. You stopped them. Why did you stop them? No, tell me.
Because last time I remember you told that.
Yeah, we're dancing and we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we're chanting for the pleasure of the deities. And you just ignore the deities and you have your own fun, just going round and round in a circle. That's ignoring the deities. But then you are dancing up and turning your back on the deities, which is also not correct, according to Shastra. And actually Srila Prabhupada made a very big deal of it. He strongly chastised devotees for showing their back to the deity. There are many things, many points. That's my next major book. All details of Vaishnava culture and etiquette. So you've come to preach in New Town. New Town after some time becomes an old town. But the name remains New Town. There's a new town in Ireland, New Town Ards. In Russia, Nizhny Novgorod. Novgorod means new town. And in Serbia, Novi Sad means the same thing, new town. And probably in so many languages there's new town, but they're all old now. So it's a very merciful undertaking to preach among all these unfortunate people here. They're so unfortunate, thinking they're happy with their wealth and their prestige, and all these rich people. Very unfortunate people. Kulin Pandit Dhani, Kulin Pandit Dhanir Baro Abhiman, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. So they are happy in Maya Sukh. And it's difficult to convince them that their so-called prestige is all nonsense. Bidda kule ki koribe ta. Yesterday, Radha Balaprabhu in Radha Govinda temple brought about 70 of more than 120 of the Deen Lok, Dinere Adhik Daya Kare Bhagavan, from different bastis. So they don't have this Boro Abhiman. Everyone has, that's the subject of this verse today, but at least they don't have this maya of thinking in terms of, I am a big successful person with lots of money. I live in New Town. And my dog costs 3 lakhs. That's the sign of success, right? You have to have a vehicle that costs at least 50 lakhs and a dog that costs at least 3 lakhs. And then you're civilized. But according to Shastra, anyone who keeps a dog in the house is a chandal. Garv se kaho, hum sab chandal hai. Paise wale. लेकिन वो देशी कुर्ता नहीं है, foreign कुर्ता है. Anyway, today's verse, we're here and of course you have to speak English, otherwise you're not civilized, right? You don't speak any uncivilized languages like Hindi or Bengali. So we'll have the verse in English today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 37, Translation and Commentary by Disciples of His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse actually appears, well, it's quoted several times by Srila Prabhupada in his books, especially the first line, and it's fully quoted by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in his Caitanya-caritamrta, which Srila Prabhupada translated. There's a long purport. Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshataha syat ishat apetasya viparyayaha asmitihi tat mayaya ataha buddhaha abhajet tam bhaktya ekaya isham guru devata atma bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata syad ishadapetasya viparyayosmitihi tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayikaye shangurudevatatma bhayang dvitiya bhiniveshata syad ishadapetasya viparyayosmitihi tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayikaye shangurudevatatma bhayang dvitiya biniveshata syad ishadapetasya viparyayosmitihi tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayikaye shangurudevatatma bhayam, fear. Dvitiya, in something seeming to be other than the Lord. Abhiniveshataha, because of absorption. Syat, it will arise. Ishat, from the Supreme Lord. Apetasya, for one who has turned away. Viparyayaha, misidentification. Asmritihi, forgetfulness. Tat, of the Lord. Mayaya, by the illusory energy. Ataha, therefore. Buddhaha, an intelligent person. Abhajet, should worship fully. Tam, him. Bhaktya, with devotion. Ekaya, unalloyed. Isham, the Lord. Guru, Devata, Atma, one who sees his own spiritual master as his Lord and very soul. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is effected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul. Purport, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, the objection may be raised that since fear is caused by ignorance, it can be dispelled by knowledge, and there is no need to worship the Supreme Lord. The living entity falsely identifies with his material body, family, society, and so on, and he simply has to give up this false identification. Then what will Maya be able to do? In reply to this argument, Srila Sridhar Swami has quoted the following verse from Bhagavad-gita. Daivihyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. The living entity called Jiva Tattva is one of the potencies of the Supreme Lord, but the constitutional position of the living entity is tatastha, or marginal. Being minute, every living entity is eternally dependent upon the Supreme Living Entity, Krishna. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature as follows: Nityo nityanang chaitanas chaitananang eko bahunam yo vidathati kaman. Among all the eternally conscious beings, there is one supreme, eternal, living being who is supplying the needs of the innumerable others. Krishna Das Kaviraj has stated, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arshab Bhrita. Krishna is the only independent controller. All other living entities depend upon him. Just as the finger is part and parcel of the body, and therefore must always be engaged in bodily service, we as parts and parcels of Krishna, Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha, have the eternal duty, Sanatan Dharma, of engaging in the unalloyed service of the Lord. The potency of the Lord that enlightens us in the Lord's service is called Chit Shakti. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that when the living entity develops a spirit of independence, he is forced to come to the material world, where he enters into various types of petty and undesirable behavior that create a fearful situation for him. The Bahiranga Shakti, the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord, covers all trace of the Chit Shakti and imposes one material body after another upon the living entity for his gross sinful enjoyment. As further punishment, the living entity who has given up his loving relationship with Krishna loses all power to perceive the eternal blissful form of the Supreme Lord, who is his actual shelter. Instead, the living entity becomes attached to many temporary, phantasmagorical forms, such as his personal body, the bodies of his family members and friends, his nation, his city with its buildings and cars, and innumerable types of ephemeral material scenery. In such a state of gross ignorance, the idea of returning to one's original identity no longer even crosses the mind. By the laws of God, the three modes of material nature are constantly in conflict, as stated in the Bhagavad-gita. This conflict is described in many places in the Bhagavatam as guna vyatikaram. When the living entity is bewildered by the interactions of the modes of material nature, he comes to the conclusion of relativity and assumes that God and worship of God are simply byproducts of the relative contradictory interactions of nature's modes. In the name of anthropological, sociological, or psychological perspective, the living entity falls deeper and deeper into the darkness of materialistic ignorance, dedicating himself to mundane piety, economic development, sense gratification, or speculation, in which he regards the Absolute as lacking variety and personality, which he assumes to be products of the interactions of nature's modes. The illusory potency of the Supreme Lord is duratyaya. It is impossible to escape without the direct mercy of Krishna. Mameva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. The example may be given that when the sun is covered by clouds, no man-made apparatus can remove them from the sky. But the sun itself, which created the clouds, can immediately burn away the cloudy covering and reveal itself. Similarly, when we become covered by the illusory potency of the Lord, we identify with our temporary material body, and thus we are always in fear and anxiety. But when we surrender to the Supreme Lord Himself, He can immediately free us from this illusion. The material world is padam padam yad vipadam. It is dangerous at every step. Padam padam yad vipadam. When a living entity understands that he is not the material body but an eternal servant of God, his fear is vanquished, as stated by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Atra bhaktai sangsara bandhana beta vyang sahi bhakto pravartamanasya swata eva payati. In this Bhagavad Dharma, devotees have no need to fear the bondage of material existence. That fear goes away of its own accord for one who engages in devotional service. It is important to make clear that bhayam, or fear, cannot ultimately be vanquished simply by impersonal self-realization, as expressed by the words aham brahmasmi, I am spirit soul. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni says to Vyasadeva, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitang na shobhate. Mere naishkarmyam, or cessation of material activities and repudiation of the bodily concept of life, cannot ultimately save one. The living entity must find a superior shelter on the spiritual platform, otherwise he will come back to the fearful situation of material existence. That is stated in Shastra, Aryuhya Kritshrena, Parang Padang Tatah Patantyada Nadrita Yushmadangrayaha. Although one may with great labor and effort struggle up to the Brahman platform, kleshotigatarastesham avyaktasektachetasam, if he does not find a suitable shelter, he will come back to the material platform. His so-called liberation is vimuktamana, liberation by imagination. The living entity is by nature pleasure-seeking, anandamaya. Now we are suffering because we are falsely seeking pleasure on the material platform, and as a result we are becoming entangled in the painful complexities of material existence. But if we try to give up the pleasure-seeking propensity altogether, we shall eventually become frustrated and return to the platform of material pleasure-seeking. Although there is eternal existence on the Brahman platform of impersonal realization, there is no ananda. Variety is the mother of enjoyment. In the Vaikuntha planets, there is actual spiritual ananda. Krishna is there in his ecstatic spiritual form, surrounded by his blissful associates, all of them eternally full of bliss and knowledge. They have nothing to do with material existence. In the spiritual planets, even the scenery and birds and animals are fully conscious of Krishna and are absorbed in transcendental bliss. Yad gatvan anivartante tadhama paramam mama. One who goes to this blissful spiritual planet of Krishna will be fully satisfied and never come back to the material platform. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said, King chatra bhaktai sangsara bandhana bhetavyam. Only the bhakta actually becomes free from fear. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has emphasized the necessity of accepting a bona fide spiritual master who is Vrajendra Nandana Preshta, the dearmost servitor of the son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master is completely free from envy of other living entities, and therefore he freely distributes knowledge of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the living entities who are inimical to the service of the Lord somehow hear this knowledge submissively, they become free from the illusory potency of the Lord, which has covered them and thrown them into various miserable species of life. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the faithful disciple gradually realizes the transcendental position of Lord Narayana, who is served with great awe and reverence by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. As the disciple's transcendental knowledge gradually increases, even the Paramaishvarya, or supreme opulence of the Lord of Vaikuntha, becomes pale in the light of the beauty of Govinda, Krishna. Govinda has inconceivable potency to enchant and give pleasure, and by the mercy of the spiritual master, the disciple gradually develops his own blissful relationship, rasa, with Govinda. Having understood the blissful pastimes of Lakshmi Narayana, Sri Sita Rama, Rukmini, Dwarakadish, and finally Lord Krishna himself, the purified living entity is given the unique privilege of participating directly in the devotional service of Krishna, who becomes his only object and shelter. Payang dvitiya abhiniveshata syad ishada petasya viparyayo smritihi tanmayayato buddha abhajet tang bhaktyayikaye shang gurudevatatma. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shrishtam Manum Api Shachiputramatra Surupam Rupam Tasyagajamurupurim Maturim Goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhava Shamprapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurun Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagarna Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Caitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagarna Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tine Smarane Hoy Bigna Vinashan Anayashe Hoy Nijavan Chita Puran. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's a lot to discuss here. Srila Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as you probably know, for 30 days, every morning spoke on the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in different ways, explaining it different. It wasn't that he was repeating himself. So for 30 days, and his talks were generally at least 2 hours long. This is another verse in which there's so much is packed in here. So there's a long purport is given. The subject of the verse, it revolves around fear, the cause of fear, and freedom from fear. We learn from this verse that fear is an intrinsic characteristic of the material condition. Suffering is intrinsic in the material condition. Two words we have in Bhagavad-gita which summarize the whole material situation. Dukhalayama shashvatam, anityam asukam lokam. Everything is miserable and everything is temporary. The underlying state of consciousness in material existence is fear. And one very good example which I used to give, it's very noticeable when I was living in England, is that you'll see some birds, blackbird or starling they're called, you don't have them here. Two different kinds of birds. They're in the grass, they will find a little hole. That means there's a worm in there. And they'll be looking in the hole for the worm, to pull out the worm. And at the same time they're moving their head like this all the time. So they're looking to catch one living being, at the same time they're moving their head, thinking that some other living being is going to come and get me. Like a cat, it's very common that cats catch birds. That is typical, characteristic of the material condition. And someone who's on the spiritual platform is abhaya, without fear. How can that be possible? That we know very well. Bhaja hure mana, Srinanda Nandana, Abhaya Charanara Vindare. His feet, the lotus feet of Nanda Nandana, Krishna, are the very place, a place where we have to go if we are to be fearless. Krishna is fearless. And he is Sharanyam. There's another verse describing Krishna as being Sharanyam in this world, where Padam Padam Yad Vipadam, that's quoted in this purport. At every step in this world there is danger. We may not feel like that as we stride confidently But we don't know. At every step there's danger. You could have a heart attack when you're walking. You could slip and fall down. There could be a bomb dropped on unknowingly. You may think, well, that's not very likely. Or you could be attacked just as you're walking down the street. It's very common in America, practically every day. In England also. In America they use guns, and in England they prefer knives for attacking. But it's very common. I had an experience in my youth. I was just walking, and all of a sudden a couple of people jumped out and started beating me on the head with an iron bar or something like that. Just for fun, I guess. I didn't stop to ask them. The world is full of fear. Why is there fear? Because in this world, everyone, here it's given, there's a simple formula, because of turning away from Krishna. How does that work? Because in this material world, everyone is born how? Ichcha dvesha samuttena dvandvamohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sargayanti parantapa. Everyone comes into this world with desire. Desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. And that is in itself dvesh, nastiness, enviousness, hatred. Of course, this ichcha dvesh, that can be understood in different ways. That can be understood in terms of asakti, anasakti. Also, we find in Bhagavad-gita again and again these terms come up. Similar terms come up. But we are envious of Krishna, and then we become envious of everyone else also. And in the course of trying to fulfill our desires, we find competition in this material world, and we become frustrated because by nature we are not the enjoyer. Krishna is the enjoyer. So we can't enjoy separately from Krishna. So we become frustrated, and although in the liberated position, one is friendly to all others, but in the conditioned state, because viparyaha, here it said misidentification. You know the word very well. It means opposite. Viparita, opposite. So we have an opposite way of thinking. Instead of goodwill to all others, we have inherent good feeling toward others. That should be there, in the pure state. And in the impure state, inherent bad feeling toward others. And although in the liberated state, we simply desire the benefit of others, in the bound state, because we want to take the position of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, then we want to dominate others. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He is the dominator. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arsabhritya. You had your hand on your mouth. You should go and wash it. Just for your information, I was in Vrindavan in 1976 with the whole temple room packed. There was a yajna going on, and Srila Prabhupada suddenly stopped all the mantras and pointed to the back and said, there's one baby with his hand in his mouth. He told the mother, take him out, wash his hand, and teach him not to put his hand in his mouth. So when I see someone with their hand in their mouth, or just touching their mouth, I usually tell them, go wash your hands. Parampara. You missed the explanation. You can hear it. You heard it. So Krishna is the controller, actually. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arshabhritya. Krishna is the supreme controller, all others are his servants. And Krishna is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He is the very best well-wisher, Suhrit, of all living beings. Srila Prabhupada explained this once in a lecture, explained Suhrit. There are various words. Bandhu means general friend, Mitra means a very good friend, and Suhrit means heart and soul friend. Suhrit, good heart. You have a good heart toward others. So Krishna is the friend of all living beings, but when we come into the material situation, we may have the opportunity to dominate others, and we do that with an exploitive spirit. And then we get persons like Hiranyakashipu, who they take pleasure in giving pain to others. And therefore, in this material world, we feel fear, because although for social intercourse, there is, hello, how are you, good morning, all this kind of thing. Actually, everyone is envious of everyone else. If we had the opportunity, we would treat them badly. It's said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That was seen in Nazi Germany, the memory of which still looms large on the Western psyche. In Western Europe and America, it's a never-ending topic of discussion. In Russia also, you talk about the Nazis. It's about the worst thing you could call someone. That's why the special military operation went in Ukraine, to remove the Nazi elements. That was one major factor. Just absolute, the kind of things that they would do to other humans, even to describe is, your whole stomach will turn. But then the whole German people were cooperating with that. It means normal, nice people, they became part of a whole operation to round up Jews and others and torture and kill them because they were Jews. And there are many instances, but I'm just giving that example because you may think, well, we're nice people, we wouldn't do anything like that. But by the power of bad association, the badness can come out in us. There was an experiment done in the 1970s in a school in California where the teacher was teaching history and teaching about the Nazis and how cruel they were. As if taking pleasure in that cruelty, or being heartless. They just, without any qualms, they would just kill people, torture, all kinds of horrible things, making experiments on biological, medical experiments on live humans, all kinds of just absolutely horrible things. And then at the end of the class, the students asked, well, how could ordinary people get involved in that? And the teacher didn't know what to say. He couldn't think what to say. So, a few days later, he started an psychological experiment with them. And he changed his whole attitude. He said, now in this class we have to have discipline. We cannot expect anything without discipline. So, okay, they got that. And then he said, so you should follow the leader, who is me. And this way, within 5 days, he made them all into fanatical followers of himself, ready to fight with others, just like the Nazis. And then he said, after 5 days, he said, actually this is not just in this school, it's a nationwide movement, making them think they're part of a big thing. And now we'll show you on TV, there's going to be a broadcast from the leader. And they're all sitting down. Some of the students left the class, but most of them stayed. Because the teacher said, if you don't want to follow me, then get out of the class, which means you're going to fail your exams. And don't come back. So after 5 days, he brought them into a room and said, now we're going to have a broadcast from the leader of this movement, which is going to make America great, or whatever. It was the 1970s. And then he put on TV, and then he showed a picture of Hitler giving his talks. Heil Hitler! Deutschland überall. Have you seen those videos? He's a very good motivational speaker, complete demon. Then they all realized, oh, we were got in the same kind of consciousness. It's probably easier to make people bad than good. In this Kali Yuga especially. People tend to blindly follow leaders. And there are so many blind followers. In Hinduism, Garv Se Kaho, Hum Hindu Hai, there are so many, they're so bogus. People follow them. Even as a child I could understand that in England there was in the West there were so many Indian gurus coming to the West. And when a friend of mine first showed me Srila Prabhupada's books, which he'd got when he went into London. We were in a town just outside London. Showed me the books of Prabhupada, and he was very excited by them. I said, I don't want to see these books. These Indian gurus, they're all cheaters. It's so, even as a child, anyone with even a slight bit of sense can understand they're so bogus. But people follow them, and they get upset if you tell them they're bogus. So many times I've had this experience. And then there's competition. So this idea that we can inflict harm on others. And it's normal and it's nice. Be very careful of nice people. There are so many nice people who are eating meat. They don't think this was an animal. The animal was tortured all its life and slaughtered so that we can have our protein boost. The chickens, they're just suffering all their life. If their male chickens are born, they're killed immediately. And females are kept in a closed space filled with hormones to make them give bigger and eggs, and then they're killed. It must be huge karmic reactions coming from this. There must be lakhs and lakhs of chickens killed daily in India alone, isn't it? Because most people like to eat flesh, and chicken is cheap, relatively. There are reactions. And again, that's another reason why we feel fear. Because in the back of our mind, we know, I'm going to get it. You can't escape. Our karmic reactions are going to catch up with us. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to the famous Bharata Bhumite Hoilo Manusha Janmaja Janmashata Kari Karo Para Upaka verse, that people in India, they're naturally afraid of the four main sins, namely meat eating, gambling, illicit sex and intoxication. Srila Prabhupada wrote that in the 1970s. Not now. People aren't afraid. They don't think it's wrong to have meat eating, illicit sex. Well, still there's some consciousness of that, but that's changing. There's demoniac propaganda that homosexuality is good, transgenderism is good. There's demoniac propaganda. Actually, even heterosexuality isn't good, but it's manageable within dharma. Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. It's manageable. But these grossly sinful activities, at least within Indian culture, people used to know these things are wrong. But there's so much propaganda. The general idea nowadays is that consensual sex between adults is okay, nothing wrong with it. You don't have to be married, or you may be married to someone else than the hole that you're putting your thing into belongs to. In other words, you're having what we call one type of illicit sex. You're married to one woman, but you're having sex with someone else's wife, or whatever. It's consensual, so it doesn't matter. And if it's not consensual, then it's rape. And you have to be 16 years old in India if you're a girl, isn't it, to have consensual sex, and 21 or so, but you can't get married until you're 21. 18 for girls. So it's okay to have sex outside marriage according to Indian law. As long as you're 16, as long as you're 15 years, 364 days old, if someone has sex with you, it's rape. And the next day, nothing wrong with it. And these are all bogus laws from beginning to end, because they don't follow Shastric standard. They don't know the laws of God. And therefore they invent all their own laws. And with the idea of making everything nice for everyone. Why should we discriminate against people? They love each other. So why don't they just have sex? What do you need to get married for? Well, one reason is that the sexual act produces children. No, it doesn't, because we have contraceptives and abortion. At least in America, there's a big issue over abortion. In India, nothing. No one cares. What do they call it in Hindi and Bengali? Abortion. You're all pure, you don't know. They call it garbhapat. That's not the right word. Garbhapat means a miscarriage. It means it falls from the womb. The actual word is bruna hatya. That is the word in Shastra. But they change it. There's a very good essay written a long time ago by Ravindra Sarup Prabhu. I called it Abortion and the Language of Unconsciousness. How people change the language to make it sound as if it's nothing wrong. Abortion they call fetal tissue removal. Sounds very scientific, doesn't it? It's sinful. People are not afraid. Actually, one of the aims of this Krishna conscious movement is to make people afraid of sin. Because now they don't know. They don't know what is right and what is wrong. Pravriting cha nivriting cha janana vidurasuraha. Therefore they're demons. They don't know what is right and they don't know what is wrong. What should be done and what should not be done. But by doing what is wrong, they cause suffering to others and they invite upon themselves tremendous suffering. And then they try to make more material adjustments to solve the situation. Just like it must have been starting in the 1960s in America. They saw, oh, now we have this sexual revolution, which means free sex. Means just whoever, wherever, whenever, you get together and you make love, as they call it. But then you don't need to be married. What's this? Married? That's old-fashioned. But then they found there are so many young girls with children. And what do they do to look after? There's no husband to look after, so give money from the government. The people who are working, they have to give money via the tax system to support the poor unmarried mothers. So they have a baby and how to look after the baby. They need some money to look after them. Then all the women thought, this is great. I don't need a husband. I can have children and the government will support. So it encourages, their policies encourage more sin. All fools and rascals. They're foolish because they don't know the laws of God, and rascals because they think they can invent a better system. So this creates fear, and it's a downward spiral. It just gets worse and worse and worse, as I've several times related. A few years ago in California, a young man who was coming to Krishna consciousness told me, as if it was the most normal thing in the world, that he was raised by two lesbians, and maybe 40 years ago, no one in India even knew what the word lesbian meant. Srila Prabhupada didn't know. When he went to the West, and he didn't even know that such an entity existed. So he told me he was raised by two lesbians who were drug addicts. And as if it, normal kind of thing, just nothing to get excited. It just... And you Indian fools want to follow the West. India is the most foolish people. You have the best culture, and you can see in the Western countries it's such fallen, rascal, demoniac culture, and you want to follow it. What could be more stupid than this? Janiya Shunya Bisha Kaino. Anyway, at least you're reading these books, I hope. We see many sets of Bhagavatams in people's houses. Very nice set of Bhagavatam, absolutely new. They bought it 5 years ago, didn't open it once. So you're welcome to actually open them also and read them and get enlightened by this knowledge. This knowledge is needed in human society. That's why we're promoting the distribution of these books. We should promote the reading of these books also and following what's in the books. We should preach what's in the books. Don't preach anything else. Years ago, a devotee in Bangladesh told me that a teacher in Bangladesh had asked him, this devotee, should we follow what's in your books or what you do? Shameful, shameful. There should be no difference. Here it said, Guru Devatatma. One should take shelter of a guru. And guru is who? Achinoti yashastrani acharya stapyatyapi swayam ajrate yasmat acharyas tena kirtitaha. Who has understood the essence of Shastra, who acts according to Shastra, and who teaches others to act according to Shastra. Shastra is the center. We should follow. But Guru has to speak all these things. Otherwise, we become like those nice gurus. People like nice gurus. But if we're nice, means they don't tell you what you need to hear. They tell you what you like to hear. Blowing on a boil. They tell you you're very nice, you're very good, everything you're doing is wonderful. Such gurus are popular. But the sadhus should tell you, you're in danger. We're in a very dangerous situation. The human form of life is so crucial. Now we have the opportunity to get free from birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead. But in this Kali Yuga, most people, having acquired the rare human form of life, commit so many sinful activities in one day that will condemn them to sinful births for practically unlimited births in lower species. Every day. People don't know. Lokasya janato vidvangs chakre satvata sanghitam. The people don't know. Therefore Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam just to inform people. Anarto pashamang sakshad bhakti yogam adhokshaje. That by devotional service to the transcendent Lord, we can get free from all anarthas. Anartha means what? The whole of material existence is one big anartha. We can get free from all of this. People don't know. So Vyasadeva gave the Bhagavatam. We should also give the Bhagavatam. Speak on this. Let people hear. Let people know. There's so much to say. You could easily spend a month just going through this verse and purport. 2 hours a day. So important. The next verse, which I suppose you'll read tomorrow. How is it you're on the 11th canto when this is a new center, by the way? Curiosity. You carry on from Radha Govinda temple? Yeah, okay. What canto were we in when I was there in the early 1980s? I think it was the 4th canto. So gradually it came through. Next verse, I'll read the translation, just to give some idea of what clear and essential and vital knowledge is given here in the Bhagavatam, the translation of the next verse. This verse has said Dvitiya, talking about duality, seeing ourselves as separate from Krishna. And in the next verse, we have, although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences it as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. This imaginary experience of a world separate from Krishna can be compared to the acts of dreaming and desiring. When the conditioned soul dreams at night of something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or avoid, he creates a reality that has no existence beyond his own imagination. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person, again, in this verse which we read today, we have what an intelligent person should do and why. And in the next verse, again, from another, another perspective, I just can't remember the word now. Another principle. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. So the next verse follows from the verse we read today. And there's so much in here to discuss. is this universe real or unreal? Sometimes it says unreal, and sometimes it said it's real. We can't say it's wholly unreal. People say nothing's real in this world. We have a very good philosophical argument against that. It's called hitting them on the head with a hammer, hard. And then they can see whether it's real or not. Is the pain real or not? No, it's not real. Okay, hit him on the head again. It's real, but it's not ultimately real. This is like a bad dream, a nightmare. It's reality, but it's not ultimate reality. Then we can get into so much philosophical discussion. Philosophy, the father of modern philosophy in the Western world, Descartes, with his cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I exist, which seems to be irrefutable. But then we have in Indian philosophy, for want of a better word, whole schools of philosophy which say that there is no existence anyway. Nothing exists. Or you can't even say that nothing exists, because as soon as you say nothing, there's a conception of something. So you can't really talk about it at all, although they write hundreds of books about how nothing exists. So the solution to all philosophical problems is in Bhagavatam. We should promote it. I'll finish there. Hare Krishna. Maybe one or two questions. Ergo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I have a question. Like I've been hearing this from a long.
It's compulsory to say like all the time. I have a question, like.
Maharaj, the question is...
I don't like when people say like, when there's no need to. It's a very bad habit which almost every English speaker in India seems to have. But if you see good intellectual speakers on YouTube in the Western world, they don't say like. People just think you're stupid. So you can improve yourself by not saying like when you don't need to. Okay, what's your like question? Like. You can like, say it now. If you like, that's a bona fide use of the word like.
All right. The question is, if the life is an illusion and the life is not
an illusion.
Yeah. If the life is an illusion, like it's a dream world, then it's a habit now. So I
know
can't
it's a bad habit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's an anartha.
If a person watches a dream in his sleeping, and when he realizes that it's a dream, so he don't count his anything, whether he has done good or bad. So what does it matter? Like in life also, if he does good or bad, does it matter? Because end of the day, the life is not real.
Okay.
And
same reply. Hit him on the head with a hammer. That's another way to begin philosophy. Pain is real. Is anything real? Pain is real. Does it matter or not? You experience pain. That's the beginning of Buddha Dev's metaphysical search. Suffering is real. It's not really real, but we experience it. You may say it doesn't matter, but you're not in charge of the universe. And there are the laws of nature, the laws of God, the laws of karma. So if you do something bad, you're going to get a bad result. And do something bad, you hurt others, and they feel the pain. So yes, it does matter. The dream is an analogy. It's not 100% fitting analogy. Because we have more volition, more power of choice within the dreamlike material existence, the waking state. Otherwise there'd be no meaning to shastric statements. Do this, don't do that. Like or not like? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, so we'll finish there. One more question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for this class. Maharaj, I have actually 3 questions, but I'll make them as one because you said. So Maharaj, you are telling about how Srila Prabhupada would correct devotees when required, like even in middle of the class.
It's actually in the middle of a fire yajna. The mantras were going on, swaha, swaha. Prabhupada said, stop.
How important he would see to correct devotees. So,
Srila Prabhupada saw it as important.
Yes, Maharaj. So,
in Bengal, at least in the villages, it used to be that the training would begin practically from the beginning of life. The child puts the hand in the mouth, the mother takes it out. Again puts it in, again takes it out. So by the age of 2 or something, they don't do it anymore. That's also lost nowadays.
Yes, Maharaj. So my question was that whatever we tolerate becomes a new norm of how people treat us.
Yeah, in the name of being nice, we allow so much nonsense and it becomes normal.
So we see that in Prabhupada times the standards which were prevalent, now we see a complete
Many
change.
standards were not prevalent. Srila Prabhupada sometimes mentioned them. But he didn't give a comprehensive program of training in Brahminical etiquette to his disciples. Some things he would mention. Use your right hand, not your left when you're giving it. In India he was more careful. He said in Vrindavan, if anyone sees you drinking from the glass, touching it to your lips, then everyone in Vrindavan will condemn me. That these are mlechas, because you're not supposed to touch. So he was more careful in it. But many things he didn't teach, although he expressed a desire to do so. But many things in the Western countries, he didn't institute that. But yeah, there are many things also which Srila Prabhupada wanted to institute, which didn't get instituted, such as kirtan standards. He said some things here and there. For instance, there are many things. So what's the question?
So Maharaj, my question was that gradually what happens in the absence of the prominent acharya, people actually...
Yeah, sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa.
Yeah. So people misinterpret or not misinterpret, maybe, make some points more emphatic that suits them. And like that, there are different things are formed which may not be in the direct will of the acharya. So, like you said, the difference between what is there in the book and what you do. So, and sometimes it becomes a propaganda also.
Okay, looks like this is a comment, not a question. Okay.
So, Maharaj, so the whole thing was like, it also sometimes become a propaganda that, people, so the whole 3 things together was like...
Okay, we'll finish there. Hare Krishna. Thank you for kindly attending. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. At Radha Govinda Mandir, I was told, your Gaurnitai here are very beautiful. And I was thinking, I wish they hadn't told me that, because usually if you warn someone in advance something's going to be bad, that when you get to it, you don't feel it so bad because you were expecting it. So I was thinking, they told me they're very beautiful, so now I won't get the full effect of see, but they are very beautiful, no doubt. Very, very beautiful. Go on and tell.